and moving until finally they came to the plains. And off in the plains, there were some oryx, great big cows, big moo cows with attitude. And they said, oh yeah, one of them is going to be for us. You know, Odin had his spear, boom, dead cow. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Viking stories are not politically correct. I'm just letting you know now. Vikings, myths and everything, you know how fairy tales, grim fairy tales? Well, the Viking stories make them look grim, okay? I'm just saying. So anyhow, boom, dead cow. They got that cow over, and there was one tree out in that plain, and they got that cow, and they dressed it, and they cleaned it, and they got it hung up. And, you know, Loki was there, and, you know, Loki's good with fire, right? He just, fire. And that fire started to go. And it started to roast that beef hanging from the tree. And all the gods are like, oh, yeah. Dinner on the hoof, baby. Brisket. Santa Maria Triton. Here we go. But the meat didn't cook, which was very irritating. And it didn't cook, and it didn't cook, and it didn't cook. And Loki started to get angry. Come on, I'm starving here, because he had a very high metabolism. At which point, they heard this voice. I can help you cook this meat, but you have to give me a share. And they looked up, and in that tree was a giant eagle. And Odin looked up with his one blue eye and went, uh-huh. And the eagle said, I can help you, but I get a share. Loki said, fine, 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 because he is the god of impulse control. We know that, right? And so the eagle said, fine. And that big side of beef was perfectly done, smelled amazing. And Loki got out his knife and he started to go to that meat, and all of a sudden the eagle hopped down, boom, landed on the ground, and took that big whole side of beef and went, oh, and took about 90% of it and started eating it. Loki went nuts. Hey, 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 you do not get to eat all the meat. We are hungry gods. We need to eat too. You promised me my portion. This is my portion. At which point, Loki went over and he got a stick and he went over and he started to beat the giant eagle. For the record, if you're in a myth, is it a good idea to beat giant magical eagles? It is not a good idea. Okay, thank you, thank you. At which point, the eagle went, I thought as much. The eagle dropped the meat and went and flew up. And Loki went, well, good, I taught you a lesson. Because he was stuck to that stick, and the stick was stuck to the bird, and the bird went up into the high heavens. It flew higher and higher and higher until everything looked down there like teeny tiny ants. And it was flying along, and Loki said, all right, I know how to deal with you. Loki started using his magic. Nothing worked. He tried, I play dominoes, you play dominoes, we all play dominoes. That didn't work. He tried every trick he could. He could not get off that stick. He tried shape changing. He couldn't change into another shape. He was like, what the heck is going on here? At which point, the eagle said, oh, Loki, you want off? I'll let you off. At which point, Loki, holding the stick, went, ah! I need your help for this. Air brake. Union rules. Here we go. Ah! Really? That's the best you got? Let's try this one more time. There you go. Just imagine you're getting back in your hot car and you're in shorts. Okay? At which point, he started to fall and the ground was coming up really fast. He tried every spell he could and he couldn't do anything. And the eagle said, Loki, you're going to tell me your true name. And for those of you who know something about magic, once you have somebody's true name, you have power over them. Loki said, never. Oh, fine. And just before he was hitting the ground at max velocity, the eagle went and grabbed him again. He was still hanging on to the pole. The eagle said, oh, I don't want to drop you just yet. Let's go do some tourist stops. You know, so they headed through Solvang, because everybody goes through Solvang. And then boom, he flew across the pine trees. Boom, 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 boom. Across the top of the mountains. Boom, boom, boom. Through the cactuses. Boom, boom, boom. He flew all over the realms, through the thistles. Boom, boom, boom. Poor Loki was getting beaten to death. He said, stop, stop. Eagle flew up to the heavens again and said, are you sure, Loki? You just want me to let you go, right? And let him go again. Okay, I'll tell you my true name. The eagle grabbed him and dropped him on the ground. And then the eagle said, and turned into a big giant named Throssi. And Throssi looked at Loki and said, tell me you're not surprised. Loki Laufey-san, what is your true name? And Loki went, and the giant looked at him and said, I studied Welsh for just this occasion. That's 2 L's and a backspace delete, right? And he wrote it down and he said, I have your true name. Now you're going to do something for me. And Loki said, what? He said, you know the goddess who grows those apples, the apples of youth? Yeah? I want that goddess. Really? Most of the other gods, most of the other giants just want Freya. You sure you want Idun? Yes, I want Idun. Okay. I'll bring her to a place outside the gates in a week. Agreed. The giant turned back into an eagle and flew away. Well, Loki went back to the guys. And they were finishing up the last of the meat, of course. They said, hey, Loki, did you have an adventure? Yes. Plants, twigs, spines sticking out of his hair clothing all torn and shredded. I had a great time. How was the meat? Delicious. Thanks, guys. Eventually, they got back to Asgard. And about 4 days later, Loki just happened to be strolling through the halls of Asgard by the various houses. And who should he see but Idun? Now Idun was the goddess of magical apples. All her apples, when you ate them, they gave you youth. They kept you at your best. And nobody ever thought about it, but she brought out those bushels of apples, the basket of apples every morning. And the Norse gods had one of those apples. Here, have an apple. Have an apple. Have an apple. What kind of apple is it? Can you tell me? What kind of apple is it? Everybody grab an apple. Oh no, we're not going to forget you. Everybody grab an apple. Hi Freya, it's good to see you again. All right, everybody, eat that apple. Oh my goodness. Golden, delicious. Oh, cosmic crisp. Oh my goodness. These are the best apples you have ever tasted. You can just feel that energy running back into your body. And she was there taking care of that apple tree. That beautiful apple tree. And she saw Loki walking by and said, hi, Loki. Hello, you doing? What are you doing out here? You don't come out in these parts very often. He said, well, just strolling by. She said, did you want an apple? Of course, she always says that. He said, I would love an apple. And so she tossed him an apple, and he went, oh my goodness. This is the most delicious apple. I mean, there's another magical apple tree. It's a little tartar, a little crisper, but this is just as good. Oh my good, and it's the same kind of tingle. And Idun looked at him and went, what? What? What other magical apple tree? He said, you know, the one not far from here. Loki, I'm the goddess of magical apples. If there's a magical apple tree out there, I need to be there. I need to see this tree. And he went, okay. Load up a basket of apples. I'll come back tomorrow. We'll go in the morning. Okay. He says, don't tell anybody because we don't want anybody else to find that tree. She said, no. Idun was a very simple lady. The next morning, Loki comes back. He says, you ready to go? She said, uh-huh. And she had a basket full of apples. And the two of them left Asgard. And as they headed out of Asgard, Loki stopped. And he cast runes of magic so that Heimdall, up by the Bifrost Bridge, couldn't follow him. He cast runes to make their smell and odor go away. He traveled out of the gate. He brought the beautiful Idun with him. And they went through the woods and went through the woods and went through the woods, and it got to be a pretty long time. And finally she turned to him and said, Loki, how far is this apple tree? And he turned at the clearing. He said, well, I think we're far enough. And she said, far enough for what? He said, oh, I have somebody I want you to meet. And she said, who? The big eagle landed. It was the giant eagle. And the giant eagle looked and said, hello, Idun. And she went, Loki? And the eagle grabbed her and said, our bargain is kept. And the eagle took off with the basket of apples as well. And she screamed, can I have a scream, please? And Loki picked up one of the apples and went, these are good apples. And he walked away. A couple of days went by. Even gods have bad days, right? But there was no Idun bringing the apples of youth to the gods anymore. No apples. No apples. Everybody shake your heads. No apples. One morning, Freya got up, the beautiful Freya, and she looked in the mirror, and there was a crow's foot on the goddess of love and beauty and battle, and she went, ah! Odin's eye. He started having to hold the books out like this. Thor started to have white in his beard, started to walk a little bit hunched over. I have to tell you, Thor is not as intimidating when he's using a walker. After a couple of weeks, it looked like the association of AARP. Okay? The gods were getting old quick. And they all started talking to each other. They got to the all thing. They all started talking. Everybody said, walla, walla, walla. Rhubarb, rhubarb, rhubarb. Congratulations, you're all in union. At which point, they said, we got to find out what happened to Idun. She's never gone up missing before. And Thor said, I know who to talk to. Yeah, sure, you betcha. He said, Loki. You wonder why I'm pointing to you. He said, Loki, what have you done? And Loki said, why do you always blame me? Oh, I don't know. Midgard serpent, your kid? Yeah. The Fenris wolf, your kid? Yeah. Hela down in hell? Yeah. You know, stealing the hair off? Yeah. What's your point? What have you done? He said, well, you remember when I was trying to get the barbecue off the tree and then he dragged me on the tree and then beat me and then, He said, yeah. He made me do it. Who? A great big stone giant named Throssi. He's got Idun. Well, we got to get her back. He said, with this crew of old people? I think not. He says, we're going. Actually, you're going. Freya, may I borrow your beautiful falcon cloak? Thank you. He took that beautiful, I'm sorry, I'm two-timing you. At which point, he took that beautiful falcon cloak and he put it on, and he went, and he flew through the realms. He flew through the high heavens. He flew through Svartalfheim to Alfheim. He flew into Muspelheim, to Niflheim. He flew through all the realms till finally he came to Jotunheim, the land of stone and cold. And there, in the garden, was a giant carving ice sculptures. And he saw a little tiny window. And he flew into that window. And there was poor Idun by a little tiny tree that was not doing well. It had 2 leaves. Think Charlie Brown Christmas tree. And he went, "Hey lady, you want to get out?" "Ah, Loki!" "Yes." "You want to get out of here?" "Yes." "Grab your basket." And she grabbed the basket and he went, and he turned her into an acorn. And he flew out the window. And as he flew out the window, one feather tip touched the windowsill. And the whole castle started to yell, "Thief! Thief! Thief!" Can you say that with me?
Thief! Thief! Thief!
And he flew like a little falcon as fast as he could. Down carving ice sculptures was the giant. And the giant looked at him and said, "Oh, no, you don't." And he put down his chainsaw and he turned into a giant eagle. And now the giant eagle was right after that falcon. "Ah! Ah!" Think Rodan. "Ah!" They went. That falcon was flying. Now in the meantime, all the gods had been up on the wall. The geriatric dozen was up there. Uller with his bow. Get back, get back. They were trying to get the giants and the ogres and the trolls off the wall, and they were not doing well. Thor was like, "Get off of me." At which point, Odin looked up and said, "Hey, Uller, start a fire." And Uller turned and looked, and what did he see? But a falcon and a giant eagle flying as fast as they could. And Uller went, and he started a fire, a big fire. And Loki in falcon form looked and he said, "Aha, somebody's paying attention." With that, the falcon went, "Ee!" Can you all do that with me? "Ee!" And he flew through the flames. I know your falcon cloak. We're keeping it in consideration. He's fireproof. He flew through the flames, at which point the giant eagle said, "Oh, no, you don't." Right after it. You know who isn't fireproof? Giant frost giants. He hit those flames. Boom! At which point, boom! It broke his spell. He stood up on the wall. Loki in falcon form turned into himself. La! Boop! The acorn dropped. Out popped Idun. Idun, without missing a beat, reached into her basket and pulled out that last apple. And took that last apple and threw it to Thor. And Thor ate that apple in 2 bites. And suddenly, he stood up. And his shoulders rolled back. And his beard bristled with electricity. And he leaned back and he said, "Mjölnir!" Vroom! The thunder came back to his hand and the lightning. Can I have a crackle of lightning, please? And he turned and he looked up at that big giant and he said, "Oh, Loki, you always bring me the best presents." And he played his favorite game in the world, Whack a Giant. On the count of 3, the sound of an exploding giant. 1, 2, 3. And the great ice giant Thiassi was no more. The next morning, the gods were there. And in came sweet little Idun with her apples. Everybody take an apple. Everybody take an apple. Everybody take an apple. Today, this day only, a magical apple of youth. Everybody eat your apple. Because guess what? Today you're all Norse gods. And you know what? This magic that I'm giving you was written down by Snorri Sturluson in the 12th century. And we're doing exactly what your ancestors did 900 years ago. We're listening to amazing stories of the Vikings and their myths. My name is Drew Thomas, the Storyteller. Thank you very much.